Ladies and gentlemen, the MPF Symposium now begins. Good afternoon. I'm Wallace Lau, Chief Corporate Affairs Officer of MPFA. Thank you for being here today to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. We will now observe a moment of national pride. Please face the national and regional flags on the stage and stand solemnly. Now play and sing the national anthem. Please be seated. Good afternoon again, Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury, Mr. Christopher Hui, distinguished guests, media friends, ladies and gentlemen, and also to all our guests joining us online today. Welcome to the MPF Symposium. This year, our symposium focuses on the theme Sustainability for MPF. Today, we will have the opportunity to explore the latest trends and developments in this field. I am confident that the valuable insights provided by our esteemed speaker will leave you feeling inspired and informed. Before we proceed with the program, on behalf of the MPFA, I would like to take a moment to express our gratitude to our guests of honor, distinguished guest speakers, and panelists. Their contribution will make this symposium truly exceptional, and we are honored to have them with us today. Mr. Christopher Hui, Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury. Dr. Ma Jun, Chairman and President of the Hong Kong Green Finance Association. Ms. Alexandra Yeong, Senior Director of Investment Products of the Securities and Futures Commission. Mr. Andrew Law, Chief Executive Officer of BOCI Prudential Trustee Limited. Mr. Gabriel Wilson-Otto, Head of Sustainable Investing Strategy of Fidelity International. And Mr. Park Wing-chun, Director, Sustainability Solutions of S&P Global Sustainable One. Now, to start it off, I would like to invite Mrs. Ayesha Lau, Chairman of the Mandatory Provident Fund Scheme Authority, to deliver the opening remarks. Mrs. Lau has been leading force in shaping the MPF landscape, and her address today will surely set the tone for a productive and engaging symposium. Mrs. Lau, please.
Thank you, Wallace. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining the MPF Symposium. Now, we know your time is valuable, so we'll make sure that your next couple of hours are well spent on a topic crucial to our time, sustainability. And because we will be talking about a topic so important to our future, I think it's great that we have representatives of the younger generation here. We have some students from our universities with us. Where are they? There, welcome. Thank you. Now, as we all know, climate change directly affects the environment. It also creates long-term complex problems. So, with severe weather becoming more and more common, we really cannot afford to ignore these threats. We must do our part. So what does sustainability mean for MPF? I think, to put it simply, it means considering the long-term impact of MPF investments. So let me share with you what we're doing in this space. The MPFA has developed principles for sustainable investing, and the MPF industry has enhanced transparency with disclosure on the ESG integration strategies of MPF schemes. And today, to coincide with this symposium, the MPFA issued a new circular letter on the next step for disclosure. Yan-chee, you press the send button, right? You have, right? Yes, please check your inbox. So, and what else are we doing? Of course, we are moving full steam ahead with our flagship sustainability project for the financial system, eMPF platform. By making use of technology, the eMPF makes MPF administration more efficient and also more eco-friendly. It is not just a technological leap, it is more than that. It is actually a catalyst for change in behavior. Because do you know that 2/3 of transactions were paper-based in the past? But with the launch of the eMPF in June last year and the onboarding of 5 trustees so far, this figure has already switched round. Now, 2/3 of the transactions of onboarded schemes are digital. Our aim is to continue to move towards a greener operating environment with the ultimate goal of going completely paperless. The MPFA is also an active member of the Green and Sustainable Finance Joint Steering Group. This group is responsible for the management of climate and environmental risks for the financial sector and also works on the growth of green and sustainable finance in Hong Kong. In fact, green finance is already very much mainstream investment, I would say. Because if you look at the latest figures, for example, like green bonds issue, you will see that green bond issues in the past couple of years already constitute a major percentage of all the bonds issued during the year. In addition, our government has successfully issued digital or tokenized green bond in the past 2 years, a significant step for Hong Kong because it's combined green finance and fintech. So congratulations to our Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury. Congratulations, Chris. Now for MPF, sustainable investments such as ESG funds, green bonds, social bonds have seen an exponential growth of almost 50 times in the past decade. And then in June 2023, from June 2023, our government has given priority allocation to ESG funds for subscribing to government-issued green bonds. So, all in all, I think we have made good progress. But I believe we can and should do more, right? Yes? Good. So here are some suggestions. First, let us all keep up our knowledge on sustainable investing. So for industry players, you can make good use of the government's Green and Sustainable Finance Capacity Building Support Scheme. Basically, you can get subsidy to support your training, build capacity, and gain more knowledge on sustainable investment. Then, please spread the word. Engage with your colleagues, with clients, with scheme members to raise awareness and promote best practices. MPF trustees, please raise the bar. Set higher expectations for your investment managers to drive faster changes in their investment and risk management processes and launch more ESG funds. Investment managers, use your influence to drive your invested companies to adopt more sustainable practices and invest more in renewable energy and other environmentally friendly sectors. Last but not least, everyone, please continue to support eMPF, our biggest reform to the system since its inception and our flagship sustainability project for the financial system. The mission of the MPF industry is, of course, to secure retirement protection for the working population of Hong Kong. But all of us, we also have a crucial role to play in securing the environment that our scheme members retire into. So let us do our part, and together, let's prove that sustainability is not just a nice to have, it is an absolute must have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lau, for your thought-provoking remarks. Now, please join me in welcoming our guest of honor for this forum, Mr. Christopher Hui, Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury, who will deliver today's keynote speech. With his extensive experience and expertise in the financial industry, he will undoubtedly provide us with valuable insight into the future of MPF. Secretary Hui, please.
Ayesha, YC, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is both an honor and a privilege of mine to address all of you today at this MPF Symposium on Green Finance and Sustainable Investing. I extend my gratitude to the MPFA for convening this very important gathering, bringing together industry leaders, esteemed professionals, and dedicated stakeholders. We stand at a pivotal moment, united by a shared purpose to explore how finance can serve not only as a cornerstone for retirement protection, but also as a transformative force for the future of our planet. In recent years, the global community has awakened to the profound urgency of climate change, a challenge that transcends borders and generations. The rising tide of extreme weather and the far-reaching socio-economic consequences compel us all to act with resolve and foresight. As an international financial center of dynamism, Hong Kong is poised to lead this change and also discharge, harnessing the power of capital to propel the world towards a low-carbon future. The government has made an unwavering commitment to achieve carbon neutrality before 2050 and to halve our carbon emissions by the year 2035. These are not merely aspirations, but a call to action. Through a sustained series of initiatives, we have fortified our resolve to advance green and sustainable finance, efforts that have not only accelerated Hong Kong's emergence as a primary hub for sustainable investment, but also underscored our pivotal role in the global transition to a greener economy. Our financial sector has emerged as a formidable conduit to direct global capital towards sustainable ends. Hong Kong, with its stature as Asia's primary international financial center and a beacon of sustainable finance, stands uniquely equipped to spearhead this transformation. Our capital markets have set a gold standard in green and sustainable finance, offering a rich tapestry of investment opportunities that resonate with two Ps, both purpose and profit. As of December last year, our securities regulator has authorized over 220 ESG funds, managing assets valued at approximately 1.2 trillion Hong Kong dollars, a testament to the vibrancy of our market. Between the year 2021 and 2023, Hong Kong consistently led the region in arranging green and sustainable bonds. In the year 2023 alone, the total issuance of green and sustainable debt surpassed $50 billion, with green and sustainable bonds accounting for $30 billion, or 37% of the regional total. These figures are not just statistics or numbers. They reflect the magnetic appeal and robust capacity of our markets to finance projects that safeguard our planet. The government has been steadfast in championing this cause. Since launching the government green bond program in 2019, as highlighted by Ayesha just now, we've issued green bonds equivalent to 220 billion Hong Kong dollars, channeling vital resources into sustainable infrastructure and innovation. Our commitment to green and sustainable finance is not static. It is a dynamic pursuit propelled by innovation and collaboration. In the year 2021, we introduced the Green and Sustainable Finance Grant Scheme, a forward-thinking initiative that subsidizes bond issuers and loan borrowers for expenses related to issuance and external reviews. By lowering financial barriers, this scheme empowers businesses to embrace sustainable financing, amplifying their contributions to a greener tomorrow. With sustainable development gaining heightened worldwide awareness, it has become vital to ensure that our investors and other market participants have accurate, consistent, and also relevant information about sustainability-related matters to manage risks and also support investments. We therefore published in March last year a vision statement to set out the vision and the approach of the government and our financial regulators in developing a comprehensive ecosystem for sustainability disclosure here in Hong Kong. We then launched in December last year a roadmap on sustainability disclosure, setting out our approach in Hong Kong to require PAEs, which are the publicly accountable entities, to adopt the ISSB global standards. It provides a well-defined pathway for our large PAEs to fully adopt the ISSB standards no later than the year 2028. Also, we are cultivating a thriving green fintech ecosystem to position Hong Kong as a global leader on this frontier. To better integrate fintech with green finance and accelerate the green transformation of our economy, we will actively expand the green fintech ecosystem and also develop Hong Kong as a green fintech hub. We launched in March last year the prototype Hong Kong Green Fintech Map, which is developed together with relevant stakeholders to provide one-stop information on the current status of our green fintech companies operating in Hong Kong and related services, with a view to raising the company's profile. We are now developing the official Hong Kong Green Fintech Map with the industry, which will be published in the first half of this year. Now, let's turn our attention to reflect on the performance of our MPF system. Under the leadership of Ayesha, last year, the system delivered an average annual net return of 8.6%, culminating in a total net asset value approaching 1.3 trillion Hong Kong dollars at the year end. This achievement underscores the resilience and adaptability of our system, qualities that have defined the eMPF system and MPF system with its 2 decades legacy. Since its inception in the year 2000, the equity fund and mixed asset fund, comprising nearly 80% of the total MPF asset, have posted average annualized net returns of 4.3% and 4% respectively, outpacing inflation over the same period. These results affirm the system's capacity to weather economic cycles and also deliver enduring value to scheme members. Looking ahead, the MPF system remains a bedrock of our retirement insecurity, empowering members of the public to pursue their financial aspirations with more confidence and also stability post-retirement. Climate change, as highlighted by Ayesha just now in his TED Talk-like speech, and also socio-economic shifts present unprecedented challenges and also opportunities that demand we will finance as a force for good. This convergence of prosperity and purpose is not optional, but imperative. The MPFA has been a champion in this domain, embedding sustainable investment in its mission and also guidance for the industry. While we celebrate last year's strong performance, we recognize that the work of enhancing the MPF system is perpetual. A critical focus has been mitigating ESG risks to which pension funds with their decades-long horizons are acutely exposed. In the year 2021, the MPFA issued the principles for adopting sustainable investment in the investment and risk management processes of MPF funds. This framework has guided trustees in integrating ESG considerations into their investment and also risk management strategies and disclosing these efforts to scheme members. Trustees now report their sustainable investing progress in annual governance reports, fostering transparency that empowers members to align their investments with their values. Beyond disclosure, we are diversifying MPF portfolios by integrating sustainable investments and instruments, vehicles that not only finance ESG initiatives, but also enhance risk-adjusted returns. We've established a pioneering mechanism to prioritize the allocation of institutional green bonds to the MPF schemes. As of September last year, MPF funds invested $600 million in our government green bonds, representing a 50% increase before the arrangement was put in place. This dual-purpose initiative advances our environmental agenda while bolstering the long-term sustainability of our pension system, a synergy of social responsibility and ecological stewardship. Our dialogue today must transcend this symposium, igniting enduring change in our communities and the MPF ecosystem. Hong Kong will continue to innovate, expand, and also diversify, forging a vibrant ecosystem that serves both local, regional, and also global investors. Your wisdom and contributions are indispensable as we elevate this market and also cement Hong Kong's legacy as a global leader in green finance and retirement protection. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Secretary Hui, please remain on stage. Thank you. Now, we'd like to invite you to take a group photo with our chairman, Mrs. Ayesha Lau, and also our managing director, Mr. Cheng Yan-chee. Thank you. Please remain on stage. Now I'd like to invite the other speakers to come on stage for a group photo. May I please invite Dr. Ma Jun, Ms. Alexandra Yeong from SFC, Mr. Andrew Law, CEO, BOCI Prudential Trustee Limited, Mr. Gabriel Wilson also, Head of Sustainable Investing Strategy, Fidelity International, Mr. Park Wing Chong, Director, Sustainability Solution, S&P Global Sustainable One, and also my colleagues, Ms. Cynthia Hui, Chief Operating Officer and Executive Director of MPFA. Last but not least, Mr. Kenneth Cheng, Executive Director, Members and Supervision, MPFA. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please be seated. Now, to kick off the first part of our program, I'm very delighted to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Ma Jun. Dr. Ma is a renowned advocate for sustainable development and green finance and has been widely influential domestically and internationally. He will be sharing his insights on the topic of green finance in the mainland and Hong Kong, building a sustainable future together, and provide an overview of the latest trends and developments in the green investment field. Dr. Ma's presentation will set the scene for the subsequent presentation of this symposium, and I'm sure that you will find it to be very informative and thought-provoking. So let us all give a round of applause to welcome Dr. Ma, please.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me start by thanking MPFA for inviting me to give this talk on green sustainable finance. It's my great honor and pleasure. I woke up at 4 a.m. this morning, not because I'm a hard worker, because I've got jet lag. I was in the South Pole last few days. I spent a week there with my wife and some friends. And during the trip, I met a couple of scientists. They were giving us a lecture on climate change, on biodiversity and everything. And my question to the climate change scientist is how much the glacier in the South Pole is going to melt. He said 30%, given the current trend. And then my second question is how much sea level is going to increase if the entire South Pole, glacier and snow, melt. He said 35 meters. And how much can Hong Kong stand? I think some analysts from the China Water Risk, I think Deborah and her colleague was saying that if sea level goes up by 2 meters, 80% of Hong Kong will be underwater. So that's a climate change story that Mrs. Lau and Chris Hui were talking about. But you have to visualize, how that's going to affect our life, affect our economy, and the human being in this decade and in the coming few decades. So I think this topic today, sustainability, is really timely. And it forces us to think about how we can do something, the financial system, the pension system, to really contribute to climate action and also sustainability. Now, my talk, I think I'm given like 23 minutes. We'll cover broadly 4 topics. Number one, what China is doing in terms of a green sustainability. And secondly, I'll cover briefly on Hong Kong. I think Chris Hui has covered very well. So I talk about a couple of issues which we can further enhance in Hong Kong. And then it's transition finance, which I spent so much time in the last couple of years. I think it's more important than the pure green finance, which is about renewable battery, electric vehicle, and so on. We have to decarbonize the hard-to-abate sector. And we here, in terms of equity investments, I think can make a lot of contribution to transition finance. And finally, just a few words on how MPF may actually do more to lead this charge towards sustainability. So starting with China, my background is that I actually started working in Hong Kong in 2000. There was a time, I think MPF was set up only 1 year earlier, right? So I began to pay 5% of my salary to the MPF. Then the following 13 years, I was Deutsche Bank as chief economist for the region. In 2014, I went back to mainland. I joined the Chinese Central Bank, PBOC, as chief economist, and began to work on the Chinese green finance policy framework. And so under that framework, which we set up in 2015-16, which is called Green Finance Guideline, China now has developed the largest green financial system in the world in terms of a dollar amount of green lending and the dollar amount of green bonds that's been issued. Now, under the framework, China has set up what I call 4 pillars. Number one, taxonomy. China was the first to develop the official taxonomy in the world. That was 2015. I was leading the drafting of the Chinese green bond taxonomy, and that was the number one, the first world's official green bond taxonomy. And now we have a range of taxonomy: green lending taxonomy, green bond taxonomy, green project taxonomy, and so on. And the taxonomy has a big usage, which is to prevent greenwashing. Without official taxonomy, everybody claim my activity, my assets is green. But it's very hard to say, right? We can end up with a lot of greenwashing. The second pillar is disclosure. Earlier days, because China was focusing on real economy investing, not like Hong Kong, we do a lot of secondary markets and so on. We have to really invest in green projects that deliver environmental benefits. So we were asking the companies raising money from the banking system, the bond market, to tell us how much carbon reduction you achieve, how much CO, NOx and SOx, namely PM 2.5 you can reduce, how much COD, which is the water pollution, you can reduce. So these are the type of measurement you have to use to report a number to the authority and to the capital markets and to the banking system. Now, of course, we're moving towards ISSB-based system, which is not only on project level, but also at the entity level. Tell me about your carbon emission, your climate risk, your transition plans, and so on. But Chinese sort of ISSB is not fully operating yet. It's a framework which was issued by the Minister of Finance just a couple of months ago, and they don't have a firm sort of implementation timetable on that part. I think Hong Kong is leading the mainland China. The third pillar is the financial products. As I said, China has developed a range of green finance products. The largest one is green lending, which now stands for 37 trillion RMB, which is more than $5 trillion US dollar. Outstanding. It's not the flow. The cumulative flow is much, much bigger. And the Chinese green bond market is 2.2 trillion RMB outstanding. And we have 1,000 green funds, plus a lot of other products, green insurance, and so on and so forth. And I will talk about transition products later, but this is the existing product structure, which covers all kinds of demand in the real economy for green financing. Some needs short-term financing. You can get a bank loan of 2 years. Some needs long-term financing. You can go to the bond market, issue a 20-year green bond. And some requires insurance products to hedge against certain risks in green sectors. And some needs sort of de-risking facilities, which you can get a green sort of guarantee from the financial system. The fourth pillar, which is very unique in China, is called incentives. Now, why we have to put in incentive? Because a lot of green projects initially are not making that much money. And we need them to be funded, especially by private sector. So the government has to give incentive to make these projects more bankable or more profitable. Just a simple example, if the project initially was only 4%, offering 4% return, while the insurance company say, I need 5%. So what should I do? And I will subsidize the projects, or I can provide low-cost funding to the project so that its ROE can go up, right? So that we can attract a lot of private sector investment. Now, the ones that's done in Huzhou, which is the pilot city of green finance in China, was using a lot of interest subsidies. 0.5% interest subsidy, they leverage 200 times. The entire 100% principal is being leveraged. And that's why this place has seen an annual growth of green loans of 40% every year in the last 7 years. And currently, Huzhou has a green loan ratio of 34%, meaning green loans as a percentage of total outstanding loans, 34%, which is 10 times higher than emerging market average. Emerging market meaning emerging market developing country other than China. So that's the beauty of leveraging, private sector financing with a little bit of a government incentives. At the central bank level in China, we're also unique. The Chinese central bank, namely the PBOC, is only one that's providing a facility for decarbonization. And the PBOC said, I'm going to provide you a loan facility that has interest rate only 1.75% for qualified green projects, including renewables, industrial decarbonization, and CCUS. And I think a lot of other central banks are very jealous about that. They want to do it, but they couldn't do it because the mandates are very narrow. And a lot of other Western countries' central banks' mandate is only 2% CPI inflation. That's it. There's no structural adjustment mandate. While the Chinese central bank is different, we are responding to the structural challenge and helping the anti-government to allocate resources towards where it's needed. So that's within China. Of course, China needs to improve in many other aspects of the green financial system. For example, the asset management industry is not green enough in the mainland. It's only, I think, about 1% of the asset management products being what I believe as sort of ESG aligned, and they need to go up by 30 times to get closer to global best practices. Disclosure is not fully in place. ISA speed type of disclosure needs to be moving faster and towards mandatory, compulsory. And the carbon markets are not liquid enough in the mainland Chinese markets, and they need to be connected to the international markets going forward. Now, moving with a few comments on Hong Kong. I think Hong Kong has also set up an ecosystem with a few pillars, very much like in mainland China. One is that Hong Kong now has a taxonomy after a few years of debate, drafting, discussion, and so on. And this taxonomy is based on the Common Ground Taxonomy, which is a joint effort between China and Europe. I'm the China co-chair of the Common Ground Taxonomy, and Hong Kong adopts CGT, or Common Ground Taxonomy, as a baseline, added something else. And with taxonomy, I think next step is actually to implement it. You cannot put taxonomy on the website only and do something with the taxonomy. I think a few things you can do. One is that requiring banks to actually report your green assets, the green loans and the green bonds you hold against the taxonomy. Tell the general public, tell the authority how much green loan you have extended that's consistent or aligned with taxonomy. And the second thing you can do is to rank these banks' performance. If this bank has a 20% green loan ratio and that bank has 10%, that bank is doing better than this bank, right? So show the public, whoever is doing better. That self become a very important incentive. But you have to use a taxonomy to do that. And thirdly, give some incentives. Like in the Chinese system, the central bank can give you low-cost funding facility, and local governments can award you with interest subsidies and so on. And Hong Kong have to think about something to incentivize those financial institutions that's doing better on green against the taxonomy. The second thing I think is ISSB adoption, which is something I'm very proud of. I think Hong Kong is more aggressive than many of its peers, and taking approach of fully adoption. But I think the next task is really capacity building. Not all listed companies know how to do it. And without enough capacity, you may end up with some sort of a greenwashing or low quality reporting. And also the data, when it comes, you need to analyze it. So analysts, the pension fund researchers, asset managers have to fully utilize the data and help the data provider, the data creator, to improve the quality of the data and use the data really to allocate assets more efficiently towards sustainability assets. And in terms of products, Hong Kong, I think, as Chris Hui said, is already fairly significant. Now, relative to the size of the Hong Kong economy, Hong Kong's green finance market is large. And it's now about, I think, 1/3 of the Asian market, excluding China. And that's something we should be very proud of. But going forward, I think we need to have more sort of innovative products like tokenized green assets, securitization, carbon-related assets, and so on, so that we can meet the diverse demand of the real economy, not only from the local, but also from mainland China and also the Asian region as a whole. Now, moving on to the third topic of transition finance. It's something, as I said, I spent a lot of time last 2 to 3 years trying to push. In 2022, when I was still the co-chair of the G20 Sustainable Finance Working Group, I spent nearly half a year working on the drafting of the G20 Transition Finance Framework. It was published in, I think, December that year, and it was endorsed by G20 leaders. So it became sort of the framework for global adoption on how to develop transition finance. Now, some of you may ask, what is transition finance? What's the difference between transition finance and the green finance? The green finance is allocating financial resources to pure green activities or projects. which means that these activity projects are already very low carbon, right? Renewables, electric vehicles, batteries, water treatment, solid waste treatment, so on. But it doesn't cover the carbon-intensive sectors decarbonization activities, such as those in steel, cement, petrochemical, aviation, shipping, existing building, and so on and so forth. So you can see these hard-to-abate sectors, carbon-intensive sectors, actually much bigger as a percent of GDP compared with the pure green activities as a percent of GDP. It's something like 90% versus 10%. And that's why potentially transition finance should be larger than the pure green finance that we currently define. But it's very small now. I was asking someone from mainland China, the construction bank, they were doing relatively well on transition finance. How much transition finance we have provided relative to green finance? He said 1%. And in Hong Kong, I asked someone, I think a Standard Chartered colleague was telling me that they don't know the exact number, but definitely below 5%. And that means that we're facing a lot of challenges on establishing this transition finance system and framework. So how to do it? The G20 actually gave out some suggestions under the framework. Number one, we need a transition taxonomy. We need a big table, clearly defined these transition pathways. Maybe 5 pathways under steel, 5 pathways for cement, 5 pathways for aviation. And these are the type of technical pathways which officially recognized by regulator as effective in decarbonizing activities of these industries. And by having the table, it substantially reduces the cost of identification, verification, and reduce the cost of possibility of greenwashing, which I call transition washing in this particular space. We need that to be in place. And in mainland China, the central bank has been drafting the transition taxonomy. They have a sort of a try-use version, which is now being experimented in different regions, and some local governments came up with their own transition taxonomy. Hong Kong Monetary Authority is interested in developing transition taxonomy, and they may include some transition activity into the existing green taxonomy. So we need to help them, help them to move faster. Otherwise, without transition taxonomy, it's very hard to implement transition finance. You will end up with a lot of transition washing. The second thing is needs to help the companies wanting to transit to develop transition plans. And these transition plans need to be clear on the targets, short-term, medium-term decarbonization targets on the existing emissions, and how you're going to decarbonize in terms of pathways, and how you're going to implement these decarbonization targets by setting up the governance structures and so on. And we need financial products. We have some, for example, sustainability-linked loans and bonds, some transition loans and bonds, but not enough equity. And that's where you can come in. You got pension money, and it's long-term money. You can help decarbonization activities through setting up, for example, transition equity funds to filling this gap. And there's too much debt financing now, not enough equity financing. That's a vacuum I think the MPF can help filling. And we need incentives. A lot of transition companies, they complain, if I need to meet all these requirements on transition plan, on carbon accounting, and on verification, it's extra cost. But who is going to give me additional incentive to lower my funding cost? Without incentive, even if I know how to do transition plan, I'm not going to bother doing that, getting the same funding cost. That's why the government, the regulators, and everybody else who can help should provide additional incentives to induce them to be involved in using transition finance. In mainland China, the central bank is thinking about extending the scope of decarbonization facility to cover transition activities. So potentially, transition activities under the transition taxonomy in mainland China can also enjoy the interest rate of 1.75%. Can Hong Kong think about something like that? The last pillar under the transition framework is just transition. A lot of these transition activities may end up with laying off a lot of people. The example that I often use is in Yan-chee province in mainland China. it's 60% of its GDP is coal-related. And we all know coal is going to go away, right? In probably 20 years' time, it's going to go down to only 5% of the current size. And where do these workers go? If you don't have a transition arrangement for these people, you end up with a lot of problem in terms of social stability. And you cannot rely just on the government, because when the economy goes down due to the transition, the government doesn't have a fiscal revenue. And Social Security system won't work to protect them. And we have to do something in the financial system. When you engineer, structure transition finance, you have to take into account how to help these workers in terms of retraining and reskilling them and helping them to find new jobs, helping protect the stability of society. So this is what I call the just transition element in the transition finance framework. Still so many things to do, but I only got 5 minutes. Let me finally say a few words on what MPF can potentially do. Of course, congratulations to lots of initiatives has been taken in driving the sustainability agenda in Hong Kong and green finance. But I think maybe these are the 4 or 5 things you can consider going forward. I may or may not know exactly what's been done already, but I think these are the right things to do. One is to allocate more of the pension funds to green sustainable assets. Can we actually talk about possibility of setting a target of X% of MPF money will go to green sustainable assets going forward? And once the target is set, it has a very positive spillover effect because a lot of asset managers begin to develop the skills of green asset management in order to get your money, because you tell them you're going to get money, right? Otherwise, they won't bother, because I'm not getting money, why should I be green as an asset manager? The second thing is to incubate green asset managers. We don't have enough asset managers specialized in green sustainability, and you have to help them. And how do you help them? Of course, you can give them the money and mandate, but at the same time, you have to guide them. Tell them what to do. For example, how to do disclosure, how to select assets, how to be benchmarking against certain sort of decarbonization targets, and so on and so forth. And so training, capacity building, I think is very important. The third thing is that you can strengthen the requirements for disclosure, maybe putting something into a mandatory requirement for your asset managers. Can you tell me your carbon footprint as a mandatory requirement, right, this year, and tell me next year, are you going to decarbonize your average carbon intensity in the coming few years? Will the decarbonization be 3% per year or 4% per year? Tell me. And that itself has a very useful sort of consequence, which they have to care about this when they select assets, right? And the selection of assets in this way is going to help decarbonize the real economy. And the fourth thing is engagement. As an asset owner, and of course you hire these asset manager, you should not be passive in terms of buying and selling, just typing on the computer screen. You have to engage with the companies and tell them what to do. And on this, I have initiated a CCI in mainland China called China Climate Engagement Platform back 1.5 years ago. I think Hong Kong can think about doing similar things. Organizing, I think currently CCR has a membership of 30-something largest asset managers, asset owners. And they come together, they engage with listed companies and tell them what to do in terms of decarbonization, in terms of ESG enhancement, and so on. Once you come together, it's very powerful because each asset manager may have like 1% of the shares, right? You got 10 of them, 10%, 30 of them, 30%. You are one of the biggest shareholders. When the shareholders are talking to the company, they listen. And collectively, you can also save a lot of resources in developing the best strategy and distilling the best experiences in the same sector for the companies. That's why in the last year, we have engaged in quite a few sectors companies, and they all welcome the advice from the collective advice through what we call engagement. So all of these, I think, are only sort of suggestions, thoughts for you to consider. And I think collectively, with the MPF money, with the banking system, with the bond market, if all of them are moving towards the green in a sort of a coordinated fashion, I think it will do much more to the greening of the financial system and the greening of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ma, for sharing your expertise and insights. Thank you. Please be seated. Now, please allow me to introduce our next distinguished speaker, Ms. Alexandra Yeong. Alexandra is a senior director in the SFC. She will share with us the SFC's role in promoting sustainable finance, latest developments and initiatives. I'm sure we will all be thrilled to learn more about the SFC's initiatives in promoting sustainable finance and how it is responding to the latest developments in the field. So without further ado, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Alexandra.
Mrs. Lau, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to thank the MPFA for inviting the SFC to this flagship event. Today, I will talk to you about sustainable finance, which is on the top of the SFC's agenda. We all know that sustainability is not just a financial buzzword, but also an existential necessity for all of us. Globally, Asia-Pacific remains one of the regions most prone to climate-related risks and natural disasters. As the region forges ahead with its climate ambition, Hong Kong is uniquely positioned to drive meaningful progress by serving the regional financing and investment needs. With a vibrant capital market, the city serves as a major hub of cross-border financing and investments, especially between mainland China and the rest of the world. This is why the role of the SFC as a capital market regulator is increasingly important to promote sustainable development in a transparent, fair, and orderly market. So today, let me share with you the recent progress we've made to green the market's future. Our sustainability initiatives are fourfold. The first is about corporate sustainability disclosures. Transparency is front and center of the SFC's regulatory agenda. Disclosure of information, including that on sustainability, is a cornerstone for Hong Kong's story of success. It is critical to empower investors to make informed investment decisions and foster confidence in our markets. In this age, it is no longer sufficient for companies to provide only financial information to investors. Globally, investors demand sustainability disclosures that are comparable, clear, and consistent. Banks and insurers also now require similar information from borrowers and insured persons. Quality sustainability disclosure has become a given across the financial system. So it is critically important that we have a harmonized set of standards as a guide. For the SFC, we are committed to promoting a phased and proportionate adoption of global baseline standards, namely the IFRS Sustainability Disclosure Standards. This will keep Hong Kong at the global forefront of sustainable finance development. For one thing, we have been working closely with the Stock Exchange of Hong Kong to introduce ESG reporting requirements for listed companies. As a first step, just at the start of this year, the Stock Exchange requires large cap listed companies to comply with new disclosure requirements closely aligned with global baseline standards. The new requirements are modeled on the IFRS S2 climate-related disclosures issued by the International Sustainability Standards Board, or the ISSB. Thus, our stock exchange has become one of the world's first to level up these requirements. Specifically, starting from 2025, all listed companies are required to disclose their greenhouse gas emissions in scopes 1 and 2. and large companies must also disclose Scope 3 from 2026 onwards. Here, let me talk a little bit about the ISSB disclosure standards. As an international financial center, Hong Kong must live up to its reputation by adopting international disclosure requirements for listed companies and financial institutions. The so-called ISSB standards are now considered the global baseline. In 2023, they were endorsed by the International Organization of Securities Commissions, or IOSCO, which is a network of over 130 securities regulators overseeing 95% of the global securities market. With IOSCO's blessing, around 30 jurisdictions have decided to use ISSB standards or are taking steps to introduce them into their regulatory frameworks. Since the SFC is the vice chair of the IOSCO Sustainable Finance Task Force, we have played an active role in IOSCO's endorsement of the ISSB standards. To lead by example, Hong Kong should be unreserved in supporting the adoption of these standards in local rulemaking. As Secretary Ho mentioned earlier in his keynote speech, the government published the Hong Kong Roadmap on Sustainability Disclosures last December. The roadmap shows the city's determination to be a pioneer in adopting the ISSB standards locally. It sets out a clear pathway for large listed companies and financial institutions in Hong Kong to adopt the ISSB standards by 2028. It has resulted from the concerted efforts of all of Hong Kong's financial market regulators in a working group co-led by the SFC and the FSTB, and MPFA has definitely pulled its weight as a member. Going forwards, the SFC and other financial regulators will be engaging the industry to determine the adoption timing and approaches for different financial sectors. For adoption by listed companies, we will partner with the stock exchange, which is expected to consult the market in 2027. All in all, for Hong Kong to successfully implement the sustainability disclosure, we need a vibrant and comprehensive ecosystem. Getting sustainability disclosure standards right is just the first step on this journey. To build a complete and robust ecosystem, other essential components, including sustainability assurance to build credibility of disclosures, data and technology to facilitate reporting, and capacity building to grow the talent pool. Now let me turn to my second point about guiding the fund management industry. First, we support the development of a healthy and integral ESG ecosystem by growing local ESG products and markets, including those supervised by the MPFA. Hong Kong is leading the way in Asia as one of the first markets to guide ESG funds on disclosures since 2019. Our requirements aim to enable investors to understand a fund's investment focus, characteristics, and risks, so that investors know how their capital is being used. As a gatekeeper, we also reduce greenwashing risks by making sure that the ESG funds are true to their label and practice what they preach in their offering documents. With these efforts, it is encouraging to see the sustained growth momentum of ESG funds. In the past 5 years, the total number of ESG funds increased more than 7-fold as compared to 2019, when we first issued the disclosure guidance. As of December 2024, there are 224 SFC authorized ESG funds with a total AUM of over $150 billion. 4 of these funds are also the underlying funds for MPF schemes. On this note, it is also encouraging to see that the MPFA has just published the enhanced disclosure and reporting requirements for MPF ESG funds. It is beyond doubt that the MPFA and the SFC share a common vision to ensure clear and comparable disclosures. To further enhance the transparency of ESG funds, the SFC has also made available on its website a database about ESG funds features about 3 years ago. More recently, we've worked closely with the Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing to launch the first phase of the Integrated Fund Platform last December, which is shares somewhat similar objectives with the eMPF platform of the MPFA. This integrated platform includes a fund repository to provide all you need to know about retail funds. It covers the whole life cycle and value chain for the distribution of SFC authorized retail funds, including ESG funds. We see this platform as a key milestone to facilitate fund distribution and public access to more fund information. This would enrich product choice and enhance product transparency for all our investors. Apart from setting fund-level expectations, we were also one of the first in the region to require fund managers to factor climate risks into their investment and risk management processes and make proper disclosures on climate risks. In 2021, we revised the Fund Manager Code of Conduct to enhance climate-related requirements. Again, we aligned our expectations with international best practices by following the recommendations made by the Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, or TCFD. I understand that the MPFA have adopted a similar approach by also referencing the TCFD recommendations in issuing a set of high-level principles for MPF funds to adopt sustainable investing. This provides solid support for MPF trustees to integrate ESG factors into the investment and financial risk management of MPF funds and make relevant disclosure to their scheme members. So much for sustainability disclosures for now. Next, I will talk about our work related to ESG ratings and data product providers. Over the last 2 years, a lot of work has been done on developing a voluntary code of conduct for data providers, which serves as an important source of decision-useful data for both investors and investment managers. Prior to the birth of the code, which the SFC supports, our outreach exercise in 2022 found that asset managers were concerned about the data quality, transparency, and conflict of interest management of these providers. In addition, they were concerned that the providers were generally not subject to any regulatory oversight. Recognizing the importance in the sustainable finance ecosystem, the SFC announced its support and sponsorship of an industry-led working group to develop a voluntary code of conduct for ESG ratings and data product providers in Hong Kong. Financial regulators, including both the SFC and the MPFA, participated in this working group as observers. After public consultation, the finalized voluntary code was published last October. It is modeled on international best practices recommended by IOSCO and has 4 key elements, including: first, transparency; second, governance; third, systems and controls; and fourth, managing conflicts of interest. The voluntary code will establish a benchmark for the provision of high-quality, reliable, and transparent ESG information to combat greenwashing in the city's growing sustainable finance ecosystem. So far, I'm pleased to tell you that 13 providers have signed up for the code. To follow up on the publication of the code, the SFC also provided guidance to asset managers last November on conducting reasonable due diligence when engaging third-party ESG ratings and data product providers. They are expected to exercise due skill, care, and diligence and ensure resources are adequate and effective to perform their business and activities. My fourth and last point, yet a vital one, is about collaboration with the government, local, and international regulators and authorities to foster a robust sustainability ecosystem. Mainstreaming sustainable finance in Hong Kong requires the collective efforts of the government, financial regulators, and other stakeholders along the investment value chain. Of course, we know the SFC is not alone in this monumental task. Locally, this is spearheaded by the Green and Sustainable Finance Cross-Agency Steering Group, which is co-chaired by the SFC and the HKMA. The steering group plays a key role in coordinating the management of climate and environmental risks for the financial sector and accelerating Hong Kong's sustainable finance development. It also supports the government climate strategies, which includes formulating the roadmap I mentioned earlier. On the international front, global collaboration is critical as climate and sustainability issues are complex and universal and not specific to certain sectors or regions. The SFC is committed to driving the global sustainable finance agenda in IOSCO and other international standard setters, while also ensuring Hong Kong's voice continues to be heard. At the regional level, the SFC will continue to lead the Sustainable Finance Working Group under the IOSCO Asia-Pacific Regional Committee to advocate for the alignment of regulatory approaches for sustainability reporting and other topics. On a final note, I want to emphasize that building a sustainable finance ecosystem is a collaborative journey involving efforts of both public bodies and market participants. Just like the two baby pandas now causing quite some fervor in Hong Kong, this shows we can sustain the life of species if we dedicate ourselves to building a robust ecosystem for them. The same holds true for our financial market ecosystem to be sufficiently resilient so as to be able to effectively deploy capital to fuel sustainable economic growth and development that leads to a sustainable future. Going forwards, the SFC is very pleased to work closely with the MPFA, other financial regulators, the government, and the stock exchange to building a low-carbon, greener future for Hong Kong's next generation and supporting the mainland's net zero goal. I wish this symposium a great success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexandra. Please take your seats. Thank you. Now, after hearing from Alexandra on how SFC is promoting sustainable finance, I'm sure that many of you are eager to learn about MPFA's initiatives in sustainable investing. So it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Kenneth Cheng, Executive Director, Members and Supervision of MPFA, who will be sharing his insights on the topic, Sustainable Investing in MPF, Trends, Developments, and Regulatory Landscape. Kenneth, please take the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's an honor to be here today with you, sharing on a topic which is not just timely, but also critical for the future of the MPF system, which is sustainability. So over the next 10 minutes, I'll walk you through like a dozen of slides to share with you the major trends, developments, and the regulatory landscape shaping this important space. So let me start by talking about what we have been doing over the years. As you can see on the screen, we have been rolling out a series of initiatives to make our MPF schemes more sustainable. Let me cite a few key milestones. Back in 2021, we issued a set of high-level principles on sustainable investing for our MPF trustees. And by the end of 2023, each and every single MPF scheme had in place its own sustainable investing strategies. And nowadays, all these strategies are available in the relevant annual governance report of these schemes. So we have all this enhanced transparency and accountability over the years. It's been a journey, and we are making progress. But of course, what exactly are we doing? It boils down like to 4 key action areas. Number 1, principle formulation. We are making sure that the ESG risk are managed properly. Second, collaboration with trustees. We are providing guidance and support to help our industry to embrace the ESG challenges. Third, collaboration with other financial regulators, aligning our efforts and strategies with the government's climate change action plan and policies. And of course, facilitation of sustainable investment. For example, just like our chairman mentioned at her opening remark, arranging priority allocation of green bonds for MPF funds is a case in point. Now, all this measure is about creating a holistic ecosystem where sustainability isn't just an add-on, but a core part of our investment and risk management process. So you may be wondering, where did all these guiding principles are coming from? Well, they were based actually on international best practices. We look at the guidelines from the International Organization of Pension Supervisors, aka IOPS, as well as the recommendations from the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, TCFD. At the very same time, we also pay due attention to our local circumstances, where we come up with these 4-pillar guidelines in terms of governance, strategy, risk management, and disclosure on the screen. And speaking of global alignment, let's talk about a recent milestone update. In December last year, Hong Kong published a roadmap for adopting international standards on sustainability disclosure. And right after that, in the very same month, the Hong Kong ICPA, and I do see some of the ICPA representatives with us today, actually issued equivalent local standard. Now, all this not only underline Hong Kong's commitment and effort to being not just a financial center, but also a leading green finance hub. And it also makes sure that our disclosures are consistent and comparable with global benchmarks. But of course, to accomplish all these objectives, we cannot do this alone. Interregulator collaboration is a must. So as part of the Green and Sustainable Finance Cross-Agency Steering Group, we are working hard to keep the industry updated on markets and regulatory changes and updates, such as the latest learning and development opportunities, as well as the updates on data and taxonomy. And specifically, regarding the MPF sector, we've created a dedicated webpage on sustainable investing, where you can find all relevant information about the sustainable developments in this sector, including a list of MPF ESG funds with all their investment focus and strategies all in one place. And now moving on to talk about capacity building. We know that all trustees and intermediaries, including our very esteemed guest today, play a very critical role in educating our scheme members about ESG. That's why we have been making continuous effort to help the industry to build the necessary skills and knowledge which are required to empower our scheme members. Because after all, when our industry are well equipped, they can better guide our scheme members in making informed investment decisions. As you can see on this slide, it is very encouraging to see that sustainable investment in MPF funds have grown significantly over the past decade. And you can also see that there is also a growing trend for MPF trustees to offer ESG funds to our scheme members. But this significant growth in market development comes with a responsibility. All of us need to help our scheme member understand what they are investing into, and specifically, the features and risks of these ESG funds. Because after all, the retirement planning needs and preferences of all the individual scheme members are different. And that brings us to our latest initiative. So earlier today, we issued a circular letter to all trustees, providing further guidance on enhancing disclosure and reporting requirements for MPF ESG funds. And our objective, as mentioned, are to really ensure that our scheme members have the necessary information they need when they make their informed decision for retirement planning. So what exactly are we focusing on going forward? 3 main things. Number 1, ESG features. We need clear information about the ESG themes and strategies of these ESG funds. Second, monitoring mechanism. It will be an ongoing process that we need to ensure that the ESG goals and objectives of these ESG funds are met and attained as disclosed. And of course, transparency. We need to ensure transparency for preventing greenwashing through periodic assessment and disclosure. So now let's get pragmatic. What exactly we are looking for? So the key information about the ESG fund as shown on the scheme, like the exact ESG focus. Are we talking about climate change, or are we talking about the carbon reduction? The investment strategy, and of course, a matter close to our heart, asset allocation, the risk associated, and the references benchmarks. All these critical details must be disclosed upfront in the members' brochures. Now, this will ensure that the scheme member can easily have access and understand all these details before they make their decision. And it doesn't just stop there. Trustees have to regularly monitor and evaluate the ESG funds to ensure that these ESG funds are meeting their stated objectives and focus as disclosed. Now, these include disclosures on the monitoring and the measurement methodologies, the due diligence conducted, and the engagement policies. Because the more our scheme members know, the better equipped they are to make their decision that best align with their values and preferences. And on an annual basis, trustees are required to disclose whether and how these ESG funds have met their ESG goals and objectives, and do that disclosure in the annual governance report. Now, the key is clarity. So we are reminding that the disclosure must use plain language that is easy to understand, so that our scheme members with different backgrounds can grasp the information, understand the messages, and appreciate how the disclosure makes sense to their retirement planning easily. And that brings us to one of the most important tasks, the engagement and education, which Dr. Ma just now mentioned. We need to empower our scheme member to understand the products that they are investing into. And on this particular score, everyone in this room have a role to play. Now, trustee can help by providing more educational and publicity information and material, such as organizing seminars, workshops, issuing newsletters, and arranging more social media posts. Intermediaries, likewise, also have a critical role to play, because the more we educate, the more well-informed our scheme members will be when they make their retirement investment decision. So now let's talk about the timing. The enhanced disclosure requirements are effective immediately. And for the annual governance report, the new disclosure requirement applies to financial years ending on or after November last year. So the time to act is now. Ladies and gentlemen, managing ESG risk and promoting sustainable investing isn't just a regulatory requirement. It is also a shared responsibility, as it also brings along market opportunities. So by working together, the regulator, the industry, and all scheme members, we can collectively create a future where sustainability is at the heart of our retirement planning. Thank you very much, and I wish you all an enjoyable and fruitful afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kenneth. Please take your seat. Now, next on our agenda is our highly anticipated panel discussion on navigating the challenges of sustainable investing in practice. We are honored to have a group of industry leaders with expertise on the roles of MPF trustees, investment managers, and rating agency. On top of that, we are delighted to have my colleagues, Ms. Cynthia Hui, Chief Operating Officer, as the moderator of this session. Now, after the discussion, we will open the floor for a Q&A session. For those attending in person, you can simply scan the QR code at the back of your badge or name badge, or the rundown on the back of your name badge, and click the QA button on the top right corner to submit your question. And for those joining us online, please use the chat function of Zoom. Without further ado, let us welcome our esteemed panel members and moderator to the stage. Mr. Andrew Law, CEO of BOCI Prudential Trustees Limited. Mr. Gabriel Wilson Otto, Head of Sustainable Investing Strategies at Fidelity International. Mr. Park Wing Chung, Director of Sustainability Solutions at S&P Global Sustainable One. And Cynthia, COO and Executive Director of the MPFA. So now we'll move to the panel discussion. Cynthia, you have the stage, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me just start with thanking all my panelists, my three panelists. We have Andrew, who's one of our MPF trustees, so obviously we have to have an MPF trustees in the panel. And then we have Gabriel, who is from the investment management sector. So we cannot talk about investing in sustainability without an investment manager in the panel. And we've also got Park Wing, who's with S&G Global, who is a credit rating agency as well as a data provider and rating provider, who is very important because throughout the speeches that we've heard just now, we hear that getting the reliable data, quality data, and comparable data is very important for this subject. So actually, let me start with a light-hearted question. I'll put it to Park Wing first. How did you come to the venue just now?
I'm laughing because I knew about this light-hearted question only after I arrived. So guilty as charged, I took an Uber over here alone.
I see. Okay, well, how did you get to work this morning?
Okay, thank you for the turnaround. Yeah, I definitely took a train from Zhongguanou to Central.
Okay, that's better. Gabriel?
Both of them are only the second one.
Okay, good. Very good.
MTR to work and
Yes.
carpooled with my colleagues here in a taxi.
Okay, great. Andrew?
Well, that's a difficult question. I took a taxi to the venue as well as this morning because I had to go to meetings.
Right, I see. So you have an excuse. Okay, well, we'll try the public transport next time. I just want to make sure that our panelists walk the talk. Okay. Well, let me start with our serious questions. Andrew, I understand that the BOC group has got a strong focus on sustainability, and BOCI has also got a comprehensive sustainable policy. So how do these actually help with BOCI Prudential, your MPF scheme? How do they help with the sustainable investment in terms of the MPF schemes and for your MPF scheme members?
Thank you. I would start with BOC Hong Kong first. BOC Hong Kong has a very strong and comprehensive governance in managing ESG policies. And so as a major subsidiary of BOC Hong Kong, BOCI Prudential Trustee aligned its policy with BOC Hong Kong. Now, BOC Hong Kong has been recognized in a number of awards throughout the years, among which, like from FT, Euromoney, Financial Asia, and the assets. So from our perspectives, in the trustee, we feel very proud of that recognitions. Now, in 2019, as trustee, we started collecting our own ESG metrics and data ourselves. And in 2021, we started creating a ESG integration framework in around early mid 2021. And the integration framework has 7 elements. Firstly, we have a strategies and missions. And secondly, we have to set in place technology and data. And thirdly, we have to establish ESG specialists. And then next is communication and educations. We also look into reporting and disclosure and meeting financial requirements and compliance of regulations. And lastly, but most important of all, is governance and oversight. Now, from around which times, we also set up a ESG focus groups, which help, the group itself is made up of staffs of different departments, as well as department heads. Now, around that times in 2021, and also put on the screen just before, MPFA announced the principles of adopting ESG investing, sustainable investing, and the risk management process. So we working on that, and the integrations framework actually guided us pretty well, working together with the fund managers. So around that time, we have our fiduciary teams who also lead the ESG focus groups to work with the fund managers to look into how the investment process can be integrated into that. And we worked out that there are two, we have 2 schemes, right? One is directly asset managed asset, and the other one is third-party funds. I'll quickly go into this directly investment managed funds first. We work with consultants and look at how the investment or ESG investment objectives can be achieved. And I think mostly we arrive at that, firstly, there are portfolios, obviously, in different types, and portfolios has benchmark, and benchmark itself, you are actively managed, then you will have a score in ESG, and I suppose later on there will be data being discussed. So therefore, data is very important, and we also have a better understanding of what the data is and how it's arrived, and also the system that they use. And we then look into making sure that we monitor these outcomes from the portfolios. And obviously, we would like to see the data, well, the result we see is better than the benchmark. That's important. Secondly, we also look at the program, the fund managers program itself. They engage in active engagement process, as well as doing proxy voting. And lastly, also from the climate, they have a climate VAR analysis to measure the impacts of the worst case scenarios, which also come in from data, obviously. So we try to better understand that, and then we make sure that these are all monitored and progressively is improving. For the third-party fund managers, around 2021, we want to make sure that we better understand the programs. We have quite a number of managers, so we had set out a pretty lengthy due diligence questionnaires to send it to them, which, by the way, is kind of back to the principle that being given to us by MPFA and aligned with the industry. And so following that, we gone through the first process, making sure that all the fund managers are in good place. And now we have integrated all that into our BAU process. So from monitoring the ESG alignments, so we, on a quarterly basis, our board had assigned the investment committee to monitor that. So the focus group worked with the management team to assist the information being provided and being reported regularly. And also for the third-party managers, we have embedded the due diligence questionnaire to our normal annual due diligence. So I think from that process, having a strong mindset of ESG aligning with a group mindset of ESG, so it helps to implement all that. And as I said earlier on, so we started with 2019 having these data. So we ourselves, hopefully, not like me taking taxi and walk the talk.
Right. Walking the talk. Okay, yes, good. Well, good to hear that you're actually making use of the very strong background of your group. And you alluded to data just now. So my next question, I'll turn to Gabriel, because investing in sustainability investment, it's very important to be able to get the good data, quality data, and availability of data, because it's still a relatively new field. So I want to just hear from you what you see as being the challenge in terms of getting hold of data that you need, and in that, how does that help with making investment decisions?
Sure thing. Thank you very much for the question and for the opportunity. From our perspective at Fidelity International, just to go back a step, why do we care about this? Why are we looking for the data? What we believe is that ESG insights can be part of fundamental decision-making and can be financially material. So as an asset manager managing money on behalf of our clients, it's our job to make sure we're integrating every material factor that we can identify into an investment decision, so that there aren't unpriced risks or missed opportunities that are present within our funds. So with that in mind, trying to evaluate and integrate them into a decision process is critical. The other side is trying to meet our clients' preferences. So if a client has a strong preference for decarbonisation and to promote the benefits of mitigating climate change, we need to be able to have the right product to sell to that client to meet their investment requirements. And so both of those use cases require really high quality and standardized data across different geographies and different asset classes. So if we look at the first question as to how you integrate it into a fundamental decision process and the way that data is integrated into that, for us, we are quite lucky in that we have a network of over 180 analysts covering different companies in different markets that are the same people that actually do the ESG analysis as well as the fundamental analysis of that company. So our China auto specialist is the same person who's looking at the ESG risks and potential for disruption from EVs, potential issues from lithium, all of those sorts of issues. So what that means is that data is really important, but where we have problems with data, our analysts are able to speak to the company, to speak to others in the sector, and understand what these risks and opportunities are and how to price them. So we have internal tools that are based on qualitative research and assessment, which help guide that process of factoring these things into our decision-making processes. Where it becomes a little bit more challenging is that classification element. So if we're looking at, as was Dr. Ma was highlighting earlier, a transition fund, how do you show that it's improving its emissions against the right pathway? And so without robust data, it's very difficult to have scale analysis and also to have comparability across wide ranges of different assets and funds. So from my perspective, availability and quality of data is critical, and it can factor into both appropriate pricing of assets and the best investment decisions, as well as value alignment. But I don't think that we should say where there's no data, you can't do any work, or that when you have data, your decision process is finished. From our perspective, data is the start of the journey, the start of the discussion to understand.
The starting point, basically. Yes, yes, yes. Thanks very much for that. Well, Dr. Ma actually made a point about the shortage of talent in this area. It looks like your firm has got all the talents. You've got 180 of them, so you must have got people from everywhere. I'd like to turn to Park Wing. In terms of being a data and rating provider, how do you ensure that you'll be able to provide standardized data to your clients? And how do you, what are the challenges maybe in terms of making sure that the data that you provided are reliable, comparable, and transparent, just like what we heard about earlier in the earlier sessions?
Thank you, Cynthia. I think this is an important question, and I think we need to talk through and maybe unpack a little bit of what Cynthia mentioned. So I think prior to this, I think Gabriel talked about the importance of data and also some of the challenges, probably. And I think what Cynthia is really asking right now is really the important characteristics of good data. I think you mentioned reliability,
that's right.
transparency,
yes,
comparability, and standardization. So let's talk through one at a time. I think I'll start with reliability in order, because I think it's very important. And there are different ways of defining and approaching reliability. But I think at S&P, one of the approach that we approach reliability is really governance. Because I think governance is a huge part when you assign a score to a company over here. So there's two things that we do over here. I think the first part is that we actually have an independent limited assurance by Deloitte on the application of the Corporate Sustainability Assessment. We call it CSA, and this is really the foundation of the S&P Global ESG scores. So we have independent audits on that. And second, S&P Global Sustainable One, which is a bit different from what Cynthia mentioned, or S&P Global Credit Rating. There's a different team on credit rating. For ESG, it's by the Sustainable One team over here. We actually have endorsed specific code of conduct of the November 2021 IS Code guidelines. So to be very specific, what we endorse is number one, the code of conduct for ESG evaluation and data providers by the Financial Services Agency of Japan, the JFSA. The second specific code of conduct that S&P Sustainable One have endorsed is actually the code of conduct for ESG ratings and data product providers by the ICMA. So these are two that we step forward to endorse because we believe is very good best practices. So that's the first point on reliability. The second, which is equally important, we hear this many times about ESG scoring or ratings provider, about the lack of transparency and maybe as a black box. So we try our best to adopt the opposite of what is a black box. So what are the few things that we've done? I think from an investor perspective, for example, if Gabriel or Andrew on the stage wants to understand a little bit more about our methodology, on our public website, without a login, you can download the entire methodology. This is the same methodology that I talk to my clients. It's the same manner. There isn't one that's a better version or a lighter version. It's the same version that we use to explain. And for investee companies, for companies participating in the CSA, the Corporate Sustainability Assessment, this is a questionnaire that has about 120 questions. If there's any companies in the audience today that have done this, they know that it's a very daunting process. So once again, what we have in a very transparent manner is that on our website, we have a 249-page handbook to explain to companies how to fill this questionnaire, how in the sense that Why are we asking so many questions? Why is it meaningful from a sustainability lens? We not give you a question to answer, we explain to you why are we asking such a question and why it is important. I think last but not least, which is the most important, is the results. Is the results over here. When you get a score between 0 to 100, we will, in full transparency on the Capital IQ Pro platform, disclose at question level the results. Which means that if a company, let's say, have a score of 67 out of 100, you will know that out of this 67, this company get 1.2 from this question relating to climate risk. Maybe got a score of 2.7 in these questions about governance on cybersecurity. And we know how the company answered. So it's full transparency down to question level. So I think this is
Do you mean the results of all the companies that you surveyed are available to the public or just available to the company themselves?
To the public.
To the public?
To the public.
Right,
To the public.
right.
Which is why it's a very daunting process. When they participate, they are exposing
Yes.
themselves
Yes, exactly. Yes.
to the world. To the world. So that's on transparency after reliability. The third, at the end of the day, if you're a portfolio manager, I think you need comparability.
Yes.
There's no point having a data that you cannot compare apples to apples. And what is a prerequisite for comparability? Maybe it's not exhaustive, but I think to achieve comparability, you need to have sufficient and diverse number of companies that are measured using the same framework.
Right.
And hopefully a good history of it, not a framework that was invented just last month over here. So to put a bit of context, the CSA was started in 1999. That is 26 years ago.
26 years of data, right.
And today, as we stand, we, S&P Global, invite 13,000 companies to participate in the CSA. And of course, when you invite, we will definitely give you a score in any case. But out of these 13,000 companies, some of them will step forward and actively fill the questionnaire. For those who doesn't, we look at public information over here. And we call them active respondent over here. So to put some numbers into the context, this active respondent back in 2020, about 4 years ago, because the 2025 cycle have now started. So effectively 4 years ago, there was only slightly more than 1,000 companies. In the last cycle, 2024, we have 3,550 companies who stepped forward to do this questionnaire, 100 plus question questionnaire, a 3.5 times increase in about 4 years. And what's more credible is that over 500 of these companies have done so for more than 1 decade, 10 years continuously. So there must be good reasons the company put themselves forward to answer so many questions and be publicly available to expose themselves. So there must be good reasons in doing that. So we hope that the breadth, the depth, and the history of this CSA provides good comparability over here. And of course, the very last point I'll just touch on is on standardization. Of course, S&P Global alone as a firm, we probably couldn't single-handedly consolidate the alphabetical soup of guidelines or frameworks over here. This is something that what we cannot do. But I think what we could try to do is to help the ecosystem to connect the dots. So I mentioned about the CSA have many questions. So in the questions, we help to reference that this question is actually the same questions that's being asked in ISSBS2. The same question is being asked in the GHG protocol. So the invested companies, as they prepare disclosures, they know that they are maybe killing four birds with one stone. So these are asked in multiple frameworks. So we try to connect the dots on the front. So very lengthy elaboration, but I hope it shares a bit behind the scenes the efforts that we do to really improve the 4 very important aspects of good data.
Yes, thank you. I think that's very useful in terms of helping investors deciding on whether to invest in a certain company or not. I think that's good transparency and very useful for investors. I want to get back to Gabriel. As an investment manager, you obviously your primary goal is to help the investor or your client make as much return as possible. Performance is the most important thing. But we often hear, I don't know whether it's a myth or not, is that sustainability do not go together with investment return. You can only have one, not both. Are they really mutually exclusive? What do you think about that?
Like the answer to all good questions, it depends. So if we are thinking about the objectives of sustainable investing, there are definite elements which are 100% aligned with value creation. So this is that fundamental component of analysis that I was talking about earlier. So looking at the quality of corporate governance, looking at their water, waste usage, electricity usage as a way of getting an idea on input cost efficiency or factory efficiency or quality versus peers. All of these are pieces of information that let you better understand the company. Looking at physical risk from climate change, looking at economic disruption from technology change due to EV adoption. All of these issues are sustainability or ESG issues, and all of them impact companies. So from that fundamental side, the answer is very clear. If you're thinking about adding ESG to an investment process, all you're providing is new information to help a portfolio manager make a better decision. So integration should be a net positive in general. If we look at the other side of it and start to move to values alignment, this is where it becomes more difficult. So we have strategies where we have direct environmental impact, so a real estate impact strategy, where we're buying underperforming buildings, refurbishing them to a fantastic environmental standard and selling them with tenants. And we are targeting very high commercial returns. So that's the same return we target for a non-green real estate fund. So you can achieve both, but there are also examples where if you have an investor who wants to have a very restrictive set of criteria based on exclusions, that can lead to difference in performance if those excluded activities or sectors outperform or underperform. So it can add to performance if you get lucky and those sectors underperform. It can drag on performance if those sectors perform very strongly. So when we're thinking about sustainability and performance, the key is thinking about what is the manager trying to achieve? How is it integrated? Is it part of fundamental decision making? And also, to what extent is it a darker green version of a fund, which is starting to focus on value alignment? And then it's important to understand how restrictive that is on the investment process and the extent to which it's going to have an impact on potential return opportunities. Right. The way that we approach that is by having what we call the Fidelity Sustainable Investing Framework, which aims to create a wide range of different products to meet a spectrum of client preferences. So it allows us to have a discussion with a client or a trustee to say, where are you trying to hit along that value spectrum? What is the most appropriate for the client that you're trying to provide a product for?
I see. Wow, that's very interesting. Do you actually have an actual example where integrating sustainability initiative into investment has actually turned out to make outcomes better, performance better, returns better?
There's a number of examples within our funds, both at an individual stock level, and this is where we've been able to demonstrate through our own ESG analysis and research that we had concerns about corporate governance, about environmental practices. Our portfolio manager has sold out of that company, and then there's that controversy has manifest and there has been huge value destruction in that company. So we've managed to avoid a lot of pitfalls as a result of this analysis. Right. My fixed income CIO also told me that in the last 12 to 18 months, we have some Asian fixed income strategies where our ESG versions of those strategies are performing better because of stricter requirements on corporate governance, which has actually led to a lower default rate in those funds. So there's definite concrete examples of where it's translated into better performance outcomes.
Right. Well, that's very good. So these are actually good stories that could help promotion and making people more aware of sustainability and the benefits that it will bring.
And I think the really coming back to it, the core is what type of sustainable fund is it? Because ESG funds are a spectrum. It's not one category of funds as sustainable or ESG. So understanding where on that spectrum the fund sits and how it's aligned is really important. fundamental integration and consideration of ESG should be additive to an investment process due to better information supporting better investment decisions.
Yes, well, that's very interesting. I think people in this room can probably understand what you're saying, but I'm just thinking about the grassroots MPF scheme members. How do they associate this with sustainability? All they're after is good MPF return, good return in the MPF funds. So I'm turning to Andrew. You've got a tough job. So how have you been doing that? You've been promoting awareness and educating scheme members. So how have you been doing that, and what are the challenges that you faced?
As trustee, obviously we're not as specialized as they are. But what I believe is that in order for us to be able to convince our members and employers, I think we need to convince ourselves first, right? So we first, education has to be both internal as well as external. So I think it's important that firstly, given this is a relatively new concept, we need to make sure that we as trustee, our employees, better understand what it means. So we, luckily, as a group, we do have sufficient of training materials that we can utilize. And so throughout the past few years, we have been providing a series of different training available to our colleagues. And I early on mentioned about recognition awards. I think recognition awards, on one hand, it may be to project yourself better, but I think it is important to recognize that having awards both help you to communicate internally as well as externally that these are important, and we treat ESG topics very seriously. So I think firstly we need to do that, and secondly, following through from what we just said about the outcome of the what we do on the portfolios and what we do holistically on making sure that we align and working aligned with the principles that being set by MPFA, and also funds that align with SFC, etc. So communicating that is also important. So we utilize various means. We do social media, and we are on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagrams, WeChat. So we are all that we communicate. We also send out messages. We also obviously put all these useful information on our internet website, as well as the fund manager's internet website that are useful for members. I think as I mentioned, it's early days. It's very difficult to say that by just communicating all that will definitely that they will understand. So on the other hand, we also do it slightly differently. Is that just like earlier mentioned, that we try to kind of push ourselves go greens as well as the members and employer go green. So we encourage employers as well as members to go into becoming e-members. So they also recognize the first step of what it means to be environmental. So we also create programs in our call center to award successful cases for them turning members into e-members. So by doing that, the members also start recognizing, what it means to be environmental, etc. Our governance report will further communicate and making better understand. But ultimately, I think if we have some thematic funds, I think it's also very important that we make sure that the objectives or the informations that need to be made available and communicated clearly to members to ensure that they they better understand what they're buying. And after all, they aren't, I mean, while you could have, 10, 15 funds in your schemes, one of the choices that they make is important to them. So they need to definitely, when they're getting into investing into funds, they definitely need to better understand what that means. And from our perspective, I think at this stage it's more important is for trustee to holistically looking at this scheme, because most of the members may not necessarily grasp what it really means, is that we, following industry best practice to making sure that fund managers that making the investing it's following through what they said they do, and to making sure that we monitor their progress and consistent improvements being made in the various aspects I just talked about earlier on. So I think that is very important to communicating that to the members.
I want to pick up on your point about e-members. I think that's very important. We, as our chairman mentioned, eMPF is our signature project, our biggest reform, and going e is definitely good. You know, going green, using less paper. So I think that is a very good initiative. I just want to turn back to Gabriel. How do you think investment managers can actually help the trustees?
I think capacity building is really, really important in awareness. And one element, so I can talk about direct and indirect components, but I think it's definitely worth giving a shout out to the government and the initiative that's been done on subsidies for sustainability capacity building. Someone shared with me some fantastic statistics the other day that in Asia Pacific, 2/3 of the CFA ESG certificates have been issued to people in Hong Kong. And so you've seen very, very high take-up rates of a lot of these initiatives, and it has, we've noticed a step change in the level of basic understanding on ESG topics in Hong Kong over the last few years. So I think that's been incredibly successful as an initiative. What we do, if we're looking at direct support that we provide, we have a lot of collateral on the websites, which is explaining our approach to sustainable investing. We have retail-focused disclosures that assume no financial or sustainability knowledge in understanding what we do in our products. We also partner with some of our clients, trustees, others, in terms of doing education for their own staff on sustainability topics and working through those types of programs. We are also participating in a range of more broader industry capacity building. So, for example, Fidelity International is working with another of Dr. Marjun's initiatives for the Capacity Building Alliance for Sustainable Investing, which is creating education topics and tasks. So we're on the Education Council creating modules to help go into that database and area of knowledge. And we also work with HKGFA and a few other institutions in helping them create their own course material and information as part of general education. So we take it in a direct way in terms of our own relationships, and then also indirectly through industry capacity building.
Yeah, that's good. I have one last question for Pak Wing, and then we'll see whether we've got time for the floor. Pak Wing, have you seen any specific cases where you think the pension industry can be can get more benefit from adopting sustainable investing? I mean, you've surveyed a lot of companies. Your firm has got a lot of data. You've worked through this topic a lot. So just want to see whether you've got any suggestions in terms of or examples in terms of the pension industry.
Sure. Maybe less of a suggestion, but because the nature of our job, we interact with a very wide spectrum of personas. But I know today, case in point for this event, I think it's very pension-centric. In fact, this, once again, I think we love to publish things to cross-share case studies on our website. You can even Google this on our website over here. So we try to publish a lot of anonymous, just to protect our clients' names, but share how they adopt best practices in the sustainability space. So in this instance, we have these case studies. It is called A Pension Fund Enhances its Analysis of Climate-Related Physical Risk over here. So just to give a bit of a background without naming the client itself, it is a large pension fund, and they are from a team that manages their real estate and infrastructure assets. Sounds a little bit, we didn't tie in the conversation, but his explanation about infrastructure assets over here. And because these assets, unlike secondary equities market, where sometimes you might hold it for 1 year or 2 years, these physical assets, they tend to hold it for a prolonged period of time. And as a result, they might be exposed to climate physical risk in the event that inadequate steps are not made to a greener economy. So that's a bit of a background. So when we talk to these real estate divisions of the pension fund, one of their pain points is that they want to understand the probability of different physical risks that might hit their assets in different regions and in different point in time over here. And this is a part one of the question. The part two of the question is that if this really do happens, what is the financial consequence of that? And I think their stakeholders would like to know that. So that's really their pain point over here. So I'll keep it loud here because I don't want to make it sound like I'm selling S&P solutions, but as you can imagine, the solution is trying to match this problem. So we try to conduct an analysis based on models built by our climate scientists to tell them that this asset in this particular part of the world, in a particular future time frame, under different scenarios, this is the probability that it might be hit by coastal flooding, it might be hit by a typhoon, so on and so forth. And there's a modeling behind the scenes that when this actually happens, what are the actual consequences? For example, it might be a disruption to your revenue stream if this is a asset owner. This is a property in the sense that you own it, but you rent it out. And it might be business disruption if you're an asset owner. And it might be asset impairment to the asset if significant damage is done. But we compound all this and we explain all the financial pathways in granular and at a compounded composite level. So we explain all this to the clients. So at the end, I think this exercise have its own benefits. Regardless if you use S&P or another provider, it doesn't matter. But it have its own benefits. I think the first benefit is that we do the basics. Is vulnerability analysis. To even understand, is there a high probability of a hazard hitting you? I think that is the most basic. And when it does, do your best to figure out, is this very damaging financially? It's important for you, it's important for your investor. And last but not least, this is a bit of rocket science. It's a bit of science behind. To have a very transparent and explainable methodology, because this can be very heavy when you try to explain all this to your stakeholders. So to have an easily explainable, transparent, and scientific approach to approach this over here. So I think this is an area on how we engage with the pension community.
Thank you. That's very useful. I see that there are a couple of questions from the floor. They're actually for Andrew, maybe because they wonder whether you're walking the talk. They're follow-up questions, actually. The audience wants to know the responses of your scheme members towards your promotional and education efforts.
As I mentioned earlier on, I think we are still in early days. So I think we are still in the more educational process of that. So I would say in terms of e-members, that part, I think we are doing pretty well. We have two schemes, one starting with almost nothing to now close to 30%, and the other one is closer to 40% for the smaller schemes. Now, I think from our perspectives, we think that doing ESG is important, but you have to do it in the time. The timing has to be right? So you can't shuffle a lot of new concept, and at the end they will just give up. So I think we have to do it a step at a time. In that, for example, we are offering some SFC thematic funds working with the clients to customers. So that part may project internally that what this is. And by the way, we also, from a policy perspective, we provide favorable rates to clients to do ESG funds or initiatives. So it's encouraging clients as well as ourselves better understand. So I think next steps is perhaps with enhanced guidelines being set out. I think next steps it could be providing a thematic types of ESG funds that also will assist raising the members' awareness. But as I mentioned earlier on, it's also very important to make sure that when we do that, the members know what they're getting themselves into. And investing pension is for the long terms, so it is important that they make the right choice, and education is very important. Thank you.
Yes, education is a long journey. You can't do that overnight. You can't achieve something overnight. We've got 1 minute. So the last question, it was addressed to Andrew, but I think it may be more to Gabriel, is how are ESG targets set? And how do the question to Andrew was, as MPF trustee, how do you set ESG targets? But I think it's more a question for Gabriel, or both of you can chip in.
Sure thing. So if we're looking at a target, it definitely comes back to what's the objective we're trying to meet with that target. So what fund? Is it if we're looking at different ways of integrating ESG, you can have an investment relative target. So this is versus an opportunity set. Am I going to set a commitment or a target to have better characteristics than that universe? You can have an absolute target, which can be, I'm going to have a target that is as good as the top 80% of the entire world or above a specific numeric threshold that you pick. So if we're looking at examples of that, it could be a Paris-aligned decarbonisation pathway. So that's a science-based target, which is set based on the carbon emissions of a fund in order to meet a specific objective. So there's a lot of different ways of setting them. And that again goes back to the question of where is that gradient of ESG that you're on? And then what's the underlying objective that you're trying to meet through setting that target? So it's ensuring alignment with those two objectives.
Right, I see. Good,
Okay.
good. Andrew, you...
Quickly, I think firstly, the data consistency is important. So I was going on about, looking at the benchmark. So each fund has its own benchmark. And it is important that at least what we're looking at is that the funds that being managed is at least as good or better than the benchmark that being set and utilized, right? So that's number one, is the simplest. And also making progress, improvement. Secondly, managers are engaging into active proxy voting and active engagement, and the number of that and what they are doing, etc. And also from a climate VAR analysis perspective is that the scenarios being set again is being given by data, but on the other hand, using the same data sets, then scenarios that we are making improvement over time from the portfolio that we're looking at. So I think that is making progress, improvement is important.
So we have to set, well, or trustees, Andrew and all trustees, you should set higher targets every year. Right? Yes? For investment managers like Gabriel. Anyway, well, thank you, all my panelists, all three panelists. I hope you enjoy these panel discussions. And make sure you try the MTR on your way back. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Park Wing. Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you, Andrew and Cynthia. Should we give them another round of applause for the very informative sharing? Thank you very much. Right. Now, as we come to the end of today's symposium, I'm now inviting Mr. Cheng Yan-chee, Managing Director of MPFA, to deliver the wrap-up remarks. Mr. Cheng, please.
Thank you. Right. Wow, so many of you still here. I'm so happy. You know, sitting on the front row is very lonely because I have to send the VIP off every now and then, and I'm alone with my chairman on the front row. It shows that you are all with heart and passion for sustainability. It doesn't mean that our VIP don't have that heart and passion, only that they have heart and passion for a lot of things. So they managed to stay here for a while is already very good of them to show us support and pay attention to what we are doing. I think this is a very important subject, sustainability. And our secretary did mention about the commitment, government commitment and target and aspiration to be a green finance hub. I think it's very clear. It shows the government's commitment and seriousness about achieving this target. So I think the industry will need to pay attention to this. And as a matter of fact, the government has been doing a lot on sustainability, announcing a roadmap for sustainability disclosure and working with the regulators on various sorts of sustainability measures with a view to making Hong Kong a green finance hub. So the regulators also mentioned a lot of things they are doing. Alexandra is gone. Anyway, mentioned about the various measures and initiatives which the SFC has been doing. And of course, this coincides with what the MPFA is doing. And we are collaborating a lot with the other regulators with a view, of course, again, to make sustainability getting the attention and getting the action from the industry. And Alexandra mentioned something very important. A key word is collaboration. I think it is not just us who do it. We need the industry together. And we also need the scheme members in respect of MPF, of course, and we need the general population to be aware of the importance of sustainability, of the risk of not paying regard to sustainability, climate risk, you know, all sorts of this sort of thing. And the Dr. Ma mentioned about a number of suggestions for MPF. I think all of them are correct in different ways. We have been doing education, we have been doing training, we have been doing coaching for both the industry and also the general public. He mentioned specifically about target. I think he thought that MPFA is something like the making investment. But as a matter of fact, we are the regulator. We regulate the industry. We don't make investment by ourselves. But still, as a regulator, I think we could, as mentioned in the panel, we could still set target. And also, as our chairman mentioned, we should aim high. We should raise the bar by setting some higher targets so that we, all of us, could reach it. And the going to the panel, I think the panel, all the speakers are all very well in delivering what they are doing to make sustainability making progress. Andrew mentioned about various things he is doing. I think he could be made an exemplar of the trustees. I think he has been doing a lot of things, giving recognition to the participants. I think this is very important. And one thing he mentioned, which is extremely important, I think, is mindset. The fundamental thing, I think, the key word I think you should bear in mind is mindset. We have to shift our mindset from short-term gain to long-term sustainability. I think this is in particular important for MPF, because MPF investment, you are talking about investment for long term, 40 years or even over 40 years. So if you do not pay regard to sustainability in your investment decision, actually you are not only not socially responsible, you are not financially smart, because for those smart people, they would have regard. They would take into account this sort of sustainability risk in their investment decision. So I think you should do that. And thanks also a lot to Gabriel. You mentioned about the fact that there's a lot of myth about ESG funds not making money. So why bother to invest in it? But in actual fact, he quoted a lot of examples that ESG funds are actually making returns, good returns for the participants. So this is a myth you should bear in mind. If you are doing well in your planning, and as a matter of fact, you have to, because of the the severe climate change, which are causing a lot of problem to our daily life in different places of the world, and it is also causing harm to the profit, to the revenue of companies, industries. So if you don't pay regard, you take into account this sort of risk, you are actually not responsible to the well-being. You are not doing very well for the well-being of your members, for your participants. So thanks a lot for that, setting that target. So I think the one last point I want to mention, as mentioned by my chairman, is that don't forget about technology. And our eMPF platform project is a classic example of using technology to improve sustainability. And that is extremely important. It's going to save cost, it's going to reduce paper, and it's also going to reduce carbon emission. So this is extremely important. The trustees are still here. I think all of you are still here. You should bear in mind and pay attention to this very important point. In making eMPF project a success, you are doing a lot for the good of the future. You are doing a lot on sustainability, and you have regard, and you have put your scheme members' interests in the forefront, because as trustees, you have the fiduciary duty for your members. Okay, last but not least, I wish to thank all the speakers, the panelists, and most important of all, you here, you are still here. And I hope that you will find the last 2.5 hours well spent, and you are not wasting your time. So I think we should collaborate, and together we will be able to make a difference, and we'll be able to make a future which we all are proud of. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cheng. Please be seated. Now, before we conclude this symposium, we have another very exciting session that you won't want to miss. It's something about the eMPF. So please kindly stay with us for a few more minutes. And now I will hand over to my colleague, Yuki.
Thank you, Wallace. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Yuki, General Manager of Supervision Divisions, MPFA. Today's symposium has illuminated the path forward for sustainable investing in MPF. Digitalization is also playing a crucial role in promoting eco-friendly products and services to scheme members. And the launch of eMPF last year was a significant step towards fostering sustainability at MPF. As of today, all 5 early adopters have successfully onboarded the eMPF platform as scheduled. And the MPFA and eMPF Platform Company Limited have been working closely with remaining trustees for onboarding preparations. This achievement would not have been possible without the hard work and dedication of the MPF trustees. To mark this milestone, we are pleased to have Mr. Eric Lui, Chief Executive Officer of eMPF Platform Company, to share with us a few words. Mr. Lui, please.
Hi, good afternoon to everyone here. It's great today to be here to talk about this awesome new eMPF platform that is changing the management of the MPF scheme in Hong Kong. Now, first, I would like to say a big thank you to all the trustees here for your support to the projects. to these exciting projects. Without you, actually, the project, cannot be that so successful. Okay, we are also confident that with your continued engagement, the MPF projects is going to be a big success. When we talk about the eMPF platform, it's all about MPF management to make it more efficient, transparent, and convenient. It's a digital platform that streamlines processes, cut administrative costs, as well as provide a better user experience for both employers and employees. Now, the eMPF platform has launched by now about 8 months. Okay, so all the 5 early adopters onboarded on target days. Of nearly 200,000 transactions processed by the eMPF, I would say that 2/3 of the processing were conducted electronically. In particular, regarding the submission of the contribution data as well as the change of the investment accounts for 80% of the total transactions. Okay, so the number sounds very impressive, but our job are not done yet. We are working very hard to ensure that actually all the trustees will be onboarded by the end of 2025. Okay, this is a very important mission, and we need all the trustees, all the stakeholders to work together and make it happen. Okay, so we are very committed for this project, and let me make clear, we are committed to make the project a success, and we are going to partner with all the stakeholders to make sure it is a smooth transition. Okay, so together, I think we can help to build a eMPF systems that can provide more efficient and effective management of MPF functions, schemes in Hong Kong that benefits all. Again, I would like to thank your attention, your enthusiasms, in partnering in this particular initiative projects. To that, thanks for attention. So I would like to pass back to the MC. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Please stay to join us for a group photo to capture this special moment. Now, we would like to invite our chairman, Mrs. Ayesha Lau, and our managing directors, Mr. Cheng, Yan-chee, to come on stage for the photo. Please. And I would also like to invite representatives of eMPF trustees to join our senior management on stage for a group photo. Mr. Peter Koo, Chairman of AIA Company Trustees Limited. Mr. Le Yun Hon, Independent Directors of Band of Communications Trustees Limited. Mr. Raymond Tam, Independent Director of Bank Consortium Trustees Company Limited. Ms. Winnie Zheng, Independent Directors of Banks of East Asia Trustees Limited. Mr. Huang Huibin, Chairman of BOCI Prudential Trustees Limited. Mr. Henry C., Independent Directors of China Life Trustees Limited. Ms. Nancy Say, Chairman of HSBC Provident Fund Trustees Hong Kong Limited. Mr. Paul Smith, Independent Directors of Manulife Provident Funds Trust Company Limited. Mr. Herman Lam, Independent Directors of Principal Trust Company Asia Limited. Mr. Simon Calloway, Chairman of Standard Chartered Trustees Hong Kong Limited. Mr. Nigel Hassel, Chairman of Sun Life Trustee Company Limited. Mr. Alvin Yu, Independent Director of YFI Trustees Limited. Thank you. Please give a round of applause to all our MPF trustee representatives. Thank you. Please take the seat. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the MPF Symposium has come to a close. Again, I would like to thank all of our esteemed speakers, panelists, and attendees for making this symposium such a resounding success. We hope you all enjoyed the afternoon and found the discussion informative and engaging. Thank you once again for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again at next year's MPF Symposium. We have also prepared some refreshment for you outside the hall. Please enjoy. Goodbye and thank you.